What's up? It's Avery Yapps. I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of fake jobs out there. There's fake jobs as in scam job postings on LinkedIn, and I've achieved employment from LinkedIn several times, but we'll get to that when I talk about my job history. Right now, I want to talk about real companies that exist where people clock in, but essentially everybody is just pretending to work when they're there. When I picture fake jobs, I see rows of cubicles in my mind. I get Vietnam flashbacks, although a lot of companies opt for the more soul-crushing open office concept. That's the job I literally got up in the middle of a shift and quit on the spot. Nothing worse than having a coworker sit on both sides of you and your boss works directly in front of you on the computer facing you. That place was a forced socialization nightmare for 8 hours at a time. The best version of a corporate job by far is the work from home setup. If you've managed to score a work from home job, then you've hit the lottery, my friend. Company culture is the most cringe-inducing humiliation ritual that anybody could subject themselves to for a living. Because everyone is well aware the job is meaningless, so the result is a day filled with role-playing and struggle sessions where everyone gaslights each other with buzzwords like core competencies, action items, or cross-functional pain points. I've gotten a deeper sense of accomplishment from just sweeping up the shop at more blue-collar jobs than driving operational fucking leverage in corporate environments. But hey, no shade to you if you work in a corporate environment. I mean, shit, if you clock in, do nothing, and they pay you, and you're happy with that, more power to you. My biggest issue with working at fake jobs was the looming threat that you'll always be fired or laid off at a certain point when the company needs to cut corners, or when they finally discover that you're not really contributing anything to the company. And you can never really satisfy them. They just want you to make them rich. And plenty of time it's a futile enterprise. The manager is trying to motivate you to sell harder. It's like, bro, we're not going to get rich selling windows. And then they'll pull you into some bullshit work meeting where they're like, our statistics tell us that there's windows on every car in every house. So if we could just sell to 1% of them, we'll make $1 billion. And it's always somehow your fault that the company's losing money because the person above you doesn't want the heat on them. Somehow my 20 an hour paycheck is the reason why quarterly earnings are down. And fun fact, that window selling job is an actual place I worked. I got the job off LinkedIn, and I only worked there for about as long as it took them to train me, and then immediately left afterwards. The workday consisted of sitting at a computer all day and making phone calls to homeowners that were off of some list, and I don't know how they got these phone numbers, but it was definitely through shady means, because everybody you call would be so mad at you because they had already gotten like 100 calls that week. We would just spam these poor people, and they would rip into us. I don't want any fucking windows. I'm about to lose my house. You think I want to replace the windows? Stop fucking calling me. Put me on the do not call list. And we would never put them on the do not call list. What would happen then is we just put their phone number into a different list, and then we would basically just call them 3 weeks later and get the same response. The worst part was the managers would listen in on every phone call, so after you'd get a response like that, they'd run over to you, shut off the phone, and then they'd tell you that your problem was you didn't stick to the script. So you'd go from a struggle session talking to the people on the phone, just getting berated the entire time, and you were not allowed to go off script. And oftentimes they'd be like, is this a pre-recorded call? And you'd be like, no, sir. And you continue reading the script. And if you went off script, the managers basically just considered that a crime. They'd run over to you after each phone call was over, and then they'd go through all the reasons why you failed and tell you, just read directly from the script. It's a proven script. It's like printing money. They kept saying that in the humiliation rituals they called trainings after each phone call, or in between certain points during the day, you'd have to go into a room, and then they'd have you read the script in front of like 3 people who all analyzed every time you like stumbled on a word or you went off script a little bit. it was not a job where you're allowed to sell the windows. You're basically just doing a job that a chat bot could do for free. I actually had pretty good luck scoring sales jobs off of LinkedIn for a while, but none of the jobs lasted more than 3 months, I think. You'd pretty much just follow the same structure. Since you were new, you would never get the good leads, so you'd be trained on what you were going to sell, and then you'd hop on the phone with people who did not want to talk to you no matter who they were, or they wanted to talk to you, but it wasn't about what you were selling. Essentially, sales jobs are just one humiliation ritual after another, and the worst part about sales jobs is there's no job security at all. At a different place, I sold light bulbs, and one week I had a really good week. I sold like a couple $1,000s worth of light bulbs, but then after that, I had nothing. Just every phone call I made ended in a rejection or a follow-up later. So the story at the light bulb sales place was similar to the window sales place. You just get rejected on the phone, go do a struggle session that they called a training, and then you'd hop back on the phone, continue to get rejected, eventually you'd get laid off. And the people around you were getting laid off left and right. It was like a system of who's next. And by far the worst thing about those jobs is every time you get up, you're doing something wrong in their eyes because they're only making money while you're on the phone. So every time you go to the bathroom, they consider it a form of misbehaving. Obviously, they can't fire you from going to the bathroom. So the window place had a workaround for that. Every time you'd get up and leave the computer, they'd consider it a ding on your attendance. You were allowed to be late 3 times before you were outright fired, and that's bad enough. But every time you'd get up from your desk, it would be counted against those 3 times, and a certain amount of minutes would add up, and they would be considered being late for work. The same system applied for when you went on your break. So for example, if you were a minute late after you came back from your break, so if you were a minute late coming back from your break, then that minute would count against you for your overall attendance and eventually lead to you being fired. That place did not give a fuck about employees, and essentially the whole place was just a psychological torture chamber. It blows my mind to think that there's people who I saw working there who are probably still showing up to that god-awful hellhole every single day. A piece of advice, if you hate your job, don't quit right away. I'm a big fan of quiet quitting. Just continue to go, do your job poorly enough so that they can't fire you right away, and just collect a paycheck. Milk these motherfuckers for all they're worth. That was my experience with an occupation that can be considered less of a job and more of an adult daycare. And no shame at all if you work at a place that could be considered an adult daycare. We all need jobs, and money's money. It's not like we could all be firemen. Millions of people worldwide wake up in the morning, drag themselves out of bed, and head on down to a soul-crushing fake job where they have a pointless conversation around the water cooler before clocking in and just waiting out the clock for the rest of the day. And they hope that they don't hear the cackle from an HR lady laughing in the background before they call you in and let you know that your time has come. You're about to be replaced by AI. And another piece of advice, HR is not your friend. Do not talk to HR. Do not make friends with HR. Whatever you do, do not joke around HR. Honestly, I'm a big fan of not talking to anybody at work about anything that's non-work related whatsoever. When I start a new job, my first order of business is to minimize my word count as much as physically possible. Try to do as little lore drops about yourself as you can, and don't tell anybody any personal details until you really get to know them. And even them, keep them on a really short leash. Don't make friends with people because there's always backstabbers in the workplace. There's plenty of work snitches, and there's a ton of people who want to just get you out of the way so that they could move themselves up on the corporate ladder. Remember that you're in a competition with your coworkers. You're all competing for the position, and then there's a million people who are waiting to replace you. And that gets to the core of the problem, doesn't it? People are so desperate to have jobs now because the job market's just so abysmal that people are willing to pretty much do anything and put up with anything in the workplace just to put food on the table for their families. It's gotten to the point where jobs no longer require just your labor. They want your soul as well. They want to monitor the way you think, and they want to control the way that you act outside of work as well. And that's the worst thing I think of all, is the tone policing that goes on at these corporate jobs. That's a silent humiliation ritual that nobody really talks about enough. because if they do, then they'll probably get fired. But it's the personality control that happens at these places that really gets to me. It's the fact that they want to control all your things, like your political beliefs and your personal habits. Company culture is essentially just an HR buzzword for policing social interactions in the workplace, ultimately to break you down and build you up in the image that the company prefers. And then the HR Karen says something like, "We're like a family here." If you hear those words at work from anybody in a position of authority, then you're in for a real bunch of shit. You can expect them to deconstruct everything about your personality and judge you based on little things like what you do in your car before you walk into the office. So be very careful about what you say to them and what personal information you drop, because they will talk about you when you're not around. They will gossip about you, and they'll probably make things up about you just to entertain themselves. That's probably one of the worst things about those job environments as well, is the fact that there's such a system of backstabbing and the pecking order of people who develop interpersonal relationships with each other, and essentially they just try to bring people down for their own enjoyment. You can expect your managers to play favorites and pick people who they like and treat them more favorably over others. It's all par for the course. You know that girl who always comes in late with a Dunkin' coffee in her hand? She never seems to get in trouble for coming in late. But you walk into the office about 2 minutes late and all of a sudden your manager has something to say. But be super careful. It's like you're playing poker. Make sure you don't show any emotions when you're there. If you let them know something bothers you, it's going to have repercussions that are going to echo throughout your workday and just generally make your experience around the office more miserable. It's important to have an air of being cool and let them know that things don't bother you so much. But by under no circumstances, do not allow your managers to little bro you. Don't let somebody who makes more money than you in the company pretend like they're better than you in some way. Remember, at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. You're going to run into plenty people at work who have a superiority complex, and they want to think of themselves as like the big man on campus. Avoid these people. Just do your work and don't get involved in the shit. I've had a ton of jobs and I've learned something from each of them. And I can tell you that the workforce is complete dog shit, but there are some good jobs out there. I've gone from one job to another, and eventually I landed in a place where I feel pretty happy about the current job I have. So if you feel unhappy with the job circumstances that you're currently facing, remember there's always time to move up. There's always time to switch careers. You don't have to do something that you hate for your entire life. So we're pretty much getting to the end of the video now. I have a ton more job stories, but this video is just about my experiences in the corporate environment and how it's generally cringe. If you want to hear some more job stories, let me know down in the comments. Maybe I'll do a sequel to this one. Ultimately, my dream job would be to become a YouTuber, so consider this my job application. If you want to hire me as a YouTuber, then click subscribe. I appreciate y'all, and whatever you do for work, just don't let them take your soul too. All right, guys, take care.